Today, I'm exposing the top 10 reasons most people can't win against a narcissist. And if you ever loved one, you're about to understand why it felt like drowning while they stood on shore, holding the life vest and laughing at your struggle. And let me tell you right now off the bat, you will never outplay a narcissist in their own game, period. Trying to beat a narcissist at manipulation is like stepping into a chess match against the GOAT Magnus Carlsen. They'll beat you every time, and not because you're weak, but because you're playing in a battlefield designed for your loss. And right there is the problem. Most people, they keep trying to win where the rules are already rigged against them. My name is Raf, and on this channel, I give you raw, no BS relationship advice. If you're going through a breakup or trying to heal from a narcissist, this channel is built to bring you value, clarity, and strength. So if that's you, well, then consider subscribing, because I drop content every week that will shift the way you see relationships and yourself. And I'd also love for you to follow me on Instagram, where I post daily with extra content that doesn't always make it here on YouTube. The link is in the description or in the pinned comments down below. I'd love for you to join me there too. But now let's get back to today's video. The first reason that most people can't win against a narcissist is because they confuse manipulation with love. See, the narcissist comes in strong. The compliments, the attention, the late night text. It feels like you're the center of the universe. But what you don't realize is this isn't love, it's bait. It's the fisherman tossing the worm on the hook, and the moment you bite, well, they reel you in. They study your insecurities, your desires, your wounds, and then they mirror everything that you've been longing for. And you mistake that mirroring for soul connection. You think, finally someone gets me. But really, they've just mastered the art of becoming whoever you need them to be until you're hooked. It's emotional fraud. And because you felt something so intense at the beginning, you keep chasing, that high like an addict chasing their first hit. But the love you thought you had never existed. It was a costume, and you fell for the performance. Reason number 2 is you keep hoping for the old version of the narcissist to come back. Understand that the charming, attentive, perfect partner that you met in the beginning was an illusion. But when the mask drops, you tell yourself, if I love them harder, if I just show more patience, maybe they'll go back to be who they used to be. What you don't realize is that version of them was a sales pitch. It was never real. That was, what we call love bombing. Narcissists often overwhelm partners with excessive affection and gifts, early on, only to later withdraw and use it as a form of control. You're holding on to the memory of a facade. That's why you can't win. You're waiting for a ghost to resurrect, and newsflash, ghosts, they don't come back. The third reason is you underestimate how skilled they are at twisting reality through gaslighting. A narcissist can make you question your memory, your sanity, even your own eyes. You catch them in a lie, and suddenly you're the crazy one. You confront them about their behavior, and now you're too sensitive. Before long, you start doubting yourself, thinking, maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I'm the problem. The Bible says in John 8:44 that the devil is the father of lies. And make no mistake, gaslighting is lying with a purpose, to break your confidence and bend your reality. That's why most people, they can't win. You'll walk into an argument thinking it's about facts, but to a narcissist, arguments, it's about domination. It's not about truth, it's about control. And once they've made you doubt yourself, they own the battlefield. The fourth reason is people ignore the red flags because, their self-worth is tied to the relationship's survival. You see the temper, you see the disrespect, you feel the emotional neglect, but instead of walking away, you rationalize it by saying, well, nobody's perfect. Maybe it's just stress. Maybe if I give more, they'll change. No. What's really happening is your self-worth is on the line, and you've attached it to whether the relationship works or not. That's why narcissists, they prey on people with wounds. They can sense when you're looking for validation, when you're desperate for love. And once they see that, They know that all they have to do is give you crumbs and you'll call it a feast. You got to make sure that love never costs you your dignity, because if it does, well, then it's not real love. Reason number 5, you mistake trauma bonding for real connection and can't break the cycle. You see, a trauma bond is when your brain, it wires itself to confuse pain and pleasure in a relationship. The narcissist, well, it gives you affection, then withdraws it, then gives it back again. And every time they return, well, your brain, it releases dopamine, the same chemical that addicts feel when they get a hit. Research, published in behavioral science show that trauma bond, well, it mimics the cycle of addiction, making it nearly impossible for, victims to leave. That's why, when friends ask you, why don't you just leave? You can't explain it. You don't realize that you're chemically addicted to the abuse, the same way that someone, shakes and sweat without the drugs. You panic at the thought of just losing the narcissist. And you call that love, but it's not love. It's a chain disguised as comfort. Number 6, you allow the narcissist to control the narrative and doubt your own judgment. Narcissists are master storytellers. They'll paint you as unstable to your own friends. They'll twist events, well, to make, themselves the victim and you the villain. And because you care about, being fair, because you want to see the best in people, you start to question yourself. Well, maybe I did say that wrong. Maybe I was too harsh. And before you know, you're apologizing for things that you didn't even do and defending yourself against lies that, will never happen. It's like arguing with a lawyer who knows how to bend every law in their favor. You'll never win because truth isn't the goal. Perception is. And once they own the narrative, you lose your voice. The 7th reason most people can't win against a narcissist is because they keep giving endless chances. Believing forgiveness will lead to change. And yes, the Bible tells us to forgive, but it never tells us to be doormats. Jesus forgave, but he also told people, go and sin no more. Forgiveness is meant to release bitterness, not to grant repeat access to someone who abuses it. Statistics show that over 70% of partners who take back a cheating spouse or a narcissistic partner, well, they end up being betrayed again. Why? Because if there are no consequences, there's no reason to change. Narcissists, they don't learn from second chances. They learn that, that you'll tolerate their patterns. And they take your forgiveness not as grace, but as permission. Number 8, you fear loneliness more than the pain of staying with your narcissist. Now, let's be honest here. Loneliness, what's terrifying for a lot of people, right? The silence at night, the empty bed, the fear that maybe you'll never find someone again. But what blows my mind is that people will put themselves through hell just to avoid sitting in an empty room with themselves. That's why they tolerate the narcissist chaos, because chaos feels safer than solitude. But let me flip that for you. Loneliness is not your enemy. Sometimes loneliness is God's classroom. It's the season where he rebuilds your identity, where he teaches you that you're enough without someone else's validation. Psalms 34:18, it says the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. If you're alone after a narcissist, you're not abandoned. You're in rehab. Know that God is detoxing your soul from poison. But most people, they can't win because they choose familiar pain over temporary solitude. The 9th reason is they don't establish or enforce boundaries, and the narcissists, well, they exploit that. A boundary without enforcement is just a suggestion. You can tell a narcissist, hey, don't yell at me. But if you stay when they yell, well, that's permission. You can say, don't cheat. But if you take them back after they cheat, well, that's also permission. Know that narcissists, they don't respect words. They respect consequences. That's why, they push and push, because they're testing the walls of your boundaries. And when the walls collapse, they know you're not serious. Even a dog learns not to cross a line if it gets corrected consistently. But when a narcissist faces no real consequences, they'll bulldoze every line that you draw. I really need you to understand that. Boundaries aren't requests. They're laws. And if you don't enforce them, you will lose. And finally, the 10th reason is you're expecting empathy and accountability from someone incapable of giving it. You see, a narcissist doesn't do accountability. They don't do self-reflection. Expecting them to own up to their own damage is like expecting a wolf to apologize to the sheep. It's not in their nature, you know? You can cry, you can plead, you can show them the pain that they've caused, but all they'll see is opportunity. Opportunity to twist it back on you, you know, to play victim or to use your vulnerability later on against you. That's why most people, they can't win. They're standing in front of a mirror expecting it to turn into a window. You can't pull water from a stone. You know, you can't pull empathy from a narcissist. And the sooner you accept that, you know, the sooner you free yourself. Here's a lesson that I want you all to take away. And it might stink for some, but somebody's got to tell you. You don't win by beating a narcissist at their game. You win by refusing to play. You win by recognizing manipulation. It's not love. You win by refusing to wait for the mask to come back on. You win by cutting the trauma bond. By reclaiming your narrative, by enforcing boundaries like your soul depends on it. You win by embracing solitude as healing instead of punishment. You win by finally accepting that the closure that you're looking for will never come from them. It has to come from you and from God. And when you walk away, when you choose silence over begging, dignity over chaos, healing over familiar pain, that's when you've already won. Because the narcissist may never change, but you can. And your freedom, your peace, your God-given worth, that's a victory that they'll never be able to touch. If you got value out of this video, please smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you haven't already. Follow me on Instagram for daily relationship advice content that doesn't always make it here on YouTube. And go check out this playlist right here if you want to know why you should never take back a cheater. Thanks for watching. And I'll catch you on this playlist right here. Peace.